rescue of the Greek Orthodox Church was headed by the Archbishop Damaskinos of Athens. Archbishop Damaskinos, when Greece fell under Nazi occupation in 1941, did everything possible to rescue Jews from death. He is renowned for writing a letter to the occupying government protesting atrocities committed against the Jews and urged the government to desist from arresting Salonican Jewry or committing any harm towards them. When it looked like the Jews of Salonika were being deported, he made a petition from the major Greek labor unions to the German authorities protesting the deportations. Of course, it didn't do anything to delay them or to cancel them, but at least it was an act of defiance. In Athens, he issued Jews false baptismal papers and helped some 250 Jews hide in monasteries in Athens and elsewhere throughout Greece. Damaskinos also spearheaded a direct protest to the Germans, in addition to what I told you, in the form of a letter in a bold defense of the Jews who were being persecuted. The letter incited the rage of the ferocious Nazi General Jürgen Stroop, the man responsible for the brutal suppression of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising and the loss of 50,000 lives, who had since been transferred to Greece. He threatened the archbishop with death by a firing squad. Damaskinos' response was, "Greek religious leaders are not shot, they are hanged. I request that you respect this custom." The simple courage of the religious leader's reply caught the Nazi commander off guard. The appeal of the archbishop and his fellow Greeks is unique. There is no similar document of protest of the Nazis during World War II that has come to light in any other European country. It reads in part, "In our national consciousness, all of the children of Mother Greece are an inseparable unity. They are equal members of the national body, irrespective of religion. Our holy religion does not recognize superior or inferior qualities based on race or religion. As it is stated, there is neither Jew nor Greek, and thus condemns any attempt to discriminate or create racial and religious differences. Our common fate, both in days of glory and in periods of national misfortune, forged inseparable bonds between all Greek citizens without exception, irrespective of race. Today, we are deeply concerned that the fate of 60,000 of our fellow citizens who are Jews, we have lived together both in slavery and freedom, and we have come to appreciate their feelings, their brotherly attitude, their economic activity, and most important, their indefectible patriotism." Okay, in Salonika, the local metropolite, the local head of the Greek Orthodox Church, his name was Gennadios. Gennadios was part of a local rescue committee of elite general lay people in Thessaloniki or Salonika. Koretz was also part of the committee, Chief Rabbi Koretz, but most of the people were local Gentile lay leaders, including the lawyer Spiliakos. Spiliakos I recommended as a righteous Gentile, and Gennadios also is a righteous Gentile by Yad Vashem. Okay. The Metropolitan Christostomos of Zakynthos also risked his life to save the Jewish community of the city of Zakynthos on the island of Zakynthos. They numbered 270 souls. He and Mayor Lucas Carrere refused to comply with Nazi demands of listing the Jews in the island for deportation and instead submitted their own two names. In addition, they made sure that the Jews were distributed throughout various villages to prevent capture. Both were awarded in 1978 their distinction of righteous Gentiles. So of the 270 Jews that hid in rural areas on the island of Zakynthos, 30 died of starvation. That's a sad part of the story. It's part of the reality. But they were saved, and for all sorts of precarious reasons, there were no deportation boats that actually took the Jews away from the island. That's Chrysostomos' picture. Now, the Catholic Church in Greece. This is also a rare story. So, in Athens, the Catholic Church had 5 stations. They also helped feed 3,000 Jews in cooperation with the Red Cross. They assisted Jews to hide and escape from Thessaloniki and other places to Athens. They rescued young children in Salonika in a local monastery. In Thessaloniki, Father Irene Tipaldos, who also was a clerk for a first secretary for the Spanish embassy, dealt with rescue and was a diplomat for Spain. After the Jews of Salonika were deported in summer 43, he moved to Athens and was active in resistance there, rescue there. In Athens, Sister Heleni Kapar was very active in rescue. In the famine of 1941-1942, she brought into Greece 7 shiploads of wheat from Australia. That was a period of dire famine. Also in Salonika, sometimes in that period, as many as 60 Jews were dying of starvation a day. So she was exemplary in 1943-1944 during the German occupation in Athens. After the Italians had been ousted, she helped Jews hide, get money, get food, even find connections, even to illegal immigration to Palestine, but mostly with the partisans and through the Catholic Church helped Jews flee. Or first she gave them refuge, and then she found hiding places for them. So anybody in need, anyone who was totally without any means, without any money, she gave people money. Of course, she also helped them get false ID cards, but mainly she helped them be housed in this Catholic school, which she was the head of, but also in monasteries and in churches in the Athens area. And Tipaldos helped her also. But she is credited for saving hundreds of Jews, and there were many people who wrote testimonies to Yad Vashem how she saved their lives. So she was recognized as a righteous Gentile in 1972. She was originally Belgian, but she became a nun, and here I talk a little bit more of the details. You can read it on your own, but she also was eventually arrested by the Germans and imprisoned from February 1st, 1944 to March 24th, 1944. When she was March 24 is the same day the Jews were arrested in Athens. When she was released from prison, she founded a network that supplied provisions once a week to needy Jews. She was generous and kind, welcomed anyone who wished to consult her on personal matters. She also offered a one-night shelter to those who needed it. She actually housed people for longer than that. I interviewed her too also, and once on her deathbed. Her activities and sacrifices were attested to by those she helped. Amongst them, Nuli Vital, former vice president of the Athens Jewish community, and V. Tzadok. She also became a righteous Gentile, as I mentioned previously. Okay, now, the key to a lot of this was the Athenian police. They went out of their way to give false identity cards to Jews in hiding. What's remarkable is they found the Jews in hiding. They issued maybe 7,000 new Greek identity cards to Jews with false names. So in other words, if the Jew was Mordonachmias from Salonika, and he's hiding in Athens, he got the Christian Greek name Kostas Koliopoulos, or something like that. So now it was a whole network. So the head of the network was the Greek police chief Ebert, with his officers, and there were 2 names which I'll cite. One is Dimitrios Vranopoulos, and the other is Michael Glikas. So they also were righteous Gentiles. There's one more who I couldn't remember his name. But after the war, Vranopoulos, who was actually married to a Jewish woman, he was in charge of registering foreign nationals in Greece. And he enabled a lot of Jews to leave the country on illegal immigration boats and look the other way. So here's Ebert's picture. His son was a politician in Greece named Miltiades Ebert, who was finance minister. So he's remembered in Greece, and his son, once to get elected to parliament, it was close, and he won his district based on the votes from the Jewish votes, which were support for him and recognition for what his father did to rescue Jews in the Holocaust. So he also distributed the identity cards to the Greek Orthodox Church, and of course he's a righteous Gentile, and we don't know so much, but there was a connection to the Greek Navy too. All this is under German occupation, but they had some degree of autonomy and they were still operating. So even though they had the German occupation, it didn't cancel the Greek police. Here's an example of an identity card that Ebert made, or you could say forged, but he issued. So giving this Jewish woman, Eva Al-Khanati, a new Greek-sounding alias, Evangelia Alexiou.